Hey everyone, Pup Twigs here from Orlando, Florida, and joining me as my guest tonight is Pup Bandit from Dallas, Texas. How are you?
Arf, I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I am good. I'm good here and stuff. Uh, just living life the best I can.
Yep, aren't we all?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, we're just going to jump right into it, and I'd like to find out, what was the inspiration behind the name Pup Bandit?
So, I had been trying to think of a name for quite a while. Like, I had been wanting to join the overall like pup community for years and was like, I just can't think of a name. And I know a lot of people will allow themselves to be named after joining the community, but because I started in the furry fandom,
Uh-huh.
that with that, like, your character always has a name. So I felt like I just have to have a name to feel connected to this thing. And I was like, I just want something that makes you think of the color blue because it's my absolute favorite color. And I knew my hood was going to be blue. And I was like, what is like a blue dog name? Like, I don't want to be like every other person. And the irony behind that is obviously I have a name that is probably one of the most common names in the pup community. But I was like, I don't want to be like every other blue dog and be like Cyan, you know? Yeah, like, I was like, I want something very specific. Um, with my my wife and one of my good friends who is now my Omega, we would sit and watch Bluey all the time, because who doesn't? Bluey's a wonderful show. And my Omega Marble jokingly was like, "Well, you could just be Bandit. That's a blue dog." And I was like, "Darn it!" Like, I really like that name, like even apart from the Bluey stuff. But I just realized I kind of vibed with it, and so that's
Well,
where my name started.
well, hey, that if that works, it's a good pup name.
Thank you.
So with the choice of blue,
Hmm.
is there any kind of a story or background behind your hood?
So just a little bit. Like I said, I'd been wanting to join the greater pup community, like the more active pup community, for years. Um, Blue has always been my favorite color. Part of why I chose it isn't just because, like, oh, I like it. It's like seeing the color for whatever reason releases a little bit of serotonin in my brain. It just makes me a little bit extra happy. So it's like I want my hood to be that color because you can kind of catch it out of the corner of your eye when you're wearing it. So if I
Yes.
see the blue, I'll be like, wow, that's my favorite blue. But to top that off, my very first fursona in the furry community was a all blue wolf with like white wings,
Okay.
and he had like slightly darker blue hair. So I kind of wanted to do something that made me think of that to an extent. Being that I am both a dog pup and a wolf pup, I wanted something that kind of blended it together. So I ended up doing a design that's kind of wolfy, a little more wolfy
Hmm.
technically than it is dog. But it's just my two favorite blues together, and then I have a couple of accent colors, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, there's just something to me looking at it from here. The blue almost glows,
Huh.
and it's just a very striking blue to me, and everything, and I really like it. So yeah,
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I was really happy whenever Mr. S added the aqua because the cobalt wasn't like quite bright enough, and I'm very, very particular with my color blue, which is part
yeah,
of why I'd waited a while to get a custom hood. But they got this aqua, and I was like, that's perfect. That's my blue.
gonna be it. Well, how long have you been a pup now?
So a very shocking number because A, I can't think of like the true number, and B, it's relatively short compared to a lot of people I've spoken to. I joined the active, we'll just call it greater pup community, and I always use active community because that's when I went to my first actual like in-person event,
Okay.
that was like pup specific as opposed to a pup event happening around furries and that kind of stuff. Was the Dallas Eagle meet at the very end of June, the fourth Friday of June of this past year. So it has not even been a year yet, and I feel a bit like a crazy person because I found this and I was like, I'm just diving all the way into it, I found the thing that was missing.
Oh yeah, no, it doesn't take long. Once you're hooked, you're hooked.
hmm
So even though it's been a short period of time for you, what have you found has been the easiest part of being a pup or being a pup in the community?
Talking to anybody, I think being a pup lends itself to that because in the same way that dogs generally love meeting new people,
Yeah.
pups are very much the same, and we all have a tendency to get very excited when there's a new person in the room. And yeah, it's just been really easy to just walk over to someone and be like, "Hi, who are you?" You know, like no holds barred. It's just really easy to strike up a conversation. I think because we all are a little bit weird. We're
Yeah.
all in this little bit weird hobby here, and we have that like immediate connection because as a subculture that is, I wouldn't say frowned upon, but alternative enough that
Yeah.
it is not publicly talked about in like big media and stuff like that. It just creates a sense of like siblinghood in the sense that we do share this odd subculture together essentially. So it makes it a lot easier to start conversations with people.
It's almost like this hood gives you courage
Absolutely.
and takes that shyness away. Because I know a
hmm
lot of people that are shy, but when they put this on, that goes away.
Yeah, I have found that it's very similar to the furry community. Like I said, I kind of started with that, so I actually became a furry when I was in like middle school. Um, so it's been a while. I think my first like active year of drawing was 2011.
Oh,
My first con was 2012. So it's been a good minute. I'm only 26, so I suppose it's not like a long time, but a good chunk
yeah.
of my life already. And a lot of people say that same thing about fursuits. So when they put a fursuit on, they
Mhm.
find they're able to communicate with people a lot easier. They just kind of they're able to step out of their comfort zone because they have the anonymity with their face being covered, and are also able to kind of like project this different version of themselves that is a character. And I've heard a lot of pups actually say that same thing, which struck me because I've been a fursuiter for a very long time.
Yeah.
Um, and I was like, oh, like part of me kind of chuckled a little bit because I know there's some furries who don't like pups, and there's still some pups that don't necessarily like furries, which cracks me up because I'm like, y'all are the same thing, just a slightly different flavor, you know.
That's right.
um,
Right.
and then like hearing that, I was like, that's exactly what so many furries explain what fursuiting is like to them. Again, like being able to kind of like step out of the real world
Yeah.
and express themselves as this animal without having to like think about their face. And that's a big thing for me is not having to think about my face and just kind of existing.
Yep. I agree. So in that short period of time as a pup, what have you found that's been one of the more difficult parts?
I think there are um, a couple barriers. Maybe not financially, because obviously there's not necessarily a requirement to be able to be a puppy,
Yeah.
but that the pup community is a community, obviously, and I've noticed like part of what took me such a long time to become a pup was that I did not know there was such a thriving pup community in Dallas
Yeah.
until I just happened to go to the Eagle, and from there, people would tell me about some of the other events going on, and I looked more things up and got that information. But I noticed like it's really difficult to just Google search human puppy play events in my area. Like that doesn't always come up with things. A lot of the
Right.
best ways to find and connect with people is to like to be able to find like a local pet and handler group, or something of that nature, like your local puppy play group, your local pet play group, or even your local leather groups and kink groups like that will generally have that information. But again, that's something that you can't exactly Google search and have it come up with like the best answer right up at the top there. So I think kind of like that network, I suppose, has been one of the harder things. I honestly think I would have probably joined the community back in like 2019 if I had the forethought to kind of dig through and find these resources. But again, like I found them probably in early June and was finally like, I'm gonna just go to this event, and I went and was like, oh, this is way easier than I thought.
Yeah, and it was the same thing for me here in Florida because there's four packs here in
Mhm.
Central Florida,
Mhm.
and they all have different events that go on.
Mhm.
But no, there was no central area where you could see what was happening.
Mhm.
I thought, you know what? I'm just going to take it upon myself and build a calendar out. And I
Yeah. Yeah.
updated it Sunday for all four groups and post it, and they all love it now.
Mhm. We had something kind of similar, and that's actually how I ended up kind of finding things. Was we have people who were kind of like furry, who were also pup adjacent, and they were like, "Hey, we end up doing a lot of events that have pups attend them,
Yeah.
and we know of pup events that are happening, so we're going to make a channel." They actually made just like a Telegram channel where they would post the updates of all the monthly events and such. Um, so it was kind of like a condensed calendar via text, where they would post event flyers and such. And actually, just this past week, I finally made, because I've become addicted to Canva, and I'm so proud of myself for finally learning how to use it. I made like a little one-page calendar that just has like the date, a general location, and like what's happening. Like obviously, you don't get the full description in that because it would be a massively
Oh,
distracting
oh yeah.
thing
Yeah.
if I did, but because we do like pair that with the text post that says like here's the address, here's the attire, and that kind of thing. It just works well because people can now like visualize, oh, there's this many events happening, and on this day I can kind of plan my month around that. And so, pretty
Awesome.
excited that I got to put that together this week.
Good, good. Well, what advice would you give somebody that's just now wanting to get into puppy play?
Hmm. Stepping into something new is always going to be a little bit uncomfortable. Um, it's going to be intimidating no matter when or where you join. But at the end of the day, we all have this common love for um, this alternative expression of humanity, and you share that with every person that you're going to come in contact with. We all have a different understanding of the world, and you can kind of step away from the insecurities that you have by leaning into that a little bit. But yeah, definitely just allow yourself to feel a little bit uncomfortable as you make that first dive into things. I think the biggest thing is really just reaching out to your local community and making that connection so that you can have those people that you can talk to every time you step into it.
Yeah, I find most of them are pretty darn helpful. If you have a
Mm-hmm.
question, someone's going to answer it for you.
Absolutely, yeah.
So what was the inspiration for you to decide? I know you mentioned the furries, but what was your inspiration of wanting to become a pup?
I think kind of wanting a little bit of that ability to again like be in a different headspace than
Mhm.
that is non-human, release a bit of my responsibilities.
Yeah.
um, I chronically have a difficult time entering headspace, which is kind of ironic because that was my initial allure to it, which is not a bad thing because there are absolutely so many other things now that are my reason for being in this community. um, but I was in college whenever I got my first hood off of Amazon, and I've always been like my persona has always been a dog, so I've always very much identified with dog personality traits and activities and such. And obviously with pup play, that takes it a step further in that like you are fully on your hands and knees. For a lot of people who are able to do that, obviously some people are in chairs and such, and so they're not
Yeah.
necessarily able to do that. But just the ability to very much physically express themselves in an animal-like way, um, in a space where it's safe to do that. And I think that was just very attractive to me, being able to, again, like release that responsibility and just fully be a dog because I've always wanted to be a dog,
Well,
and I've always been a dog.
there you go. So I always, this was the season three. I wanted to add this question.
Hmm.
But if money were no object for you,
Hmm.
where would you want to travel to in the world?
So there are two places that came to mind when you said that. The first one is Australia, and that's because I think they have a very like not I don't just want to travel because of pup stuff, but there definitely is the benefit of like there's a very unique pup community there. I think the way that they hold like their contests and stuff is very different than how the U.S. does it. And it's just really interesting, like because there's different legal like laws around adult activities and stuff in
Yeah.
Australia, and so just the way that they're able to express is just very different. And I'm like, that's very intriguing. But on top of that, I want to see the Great Barrier Reef before it is
Oh,
no
yeah.
longer with us, so that's a big one. And then my wife and I, Clover, who is my one of my two beta puppies, have wanted to go to Thailand for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's just a really beautiful area. We love getting to travel and try new foods. We have never gotten to travel internationally together, but yeah, that's definitely a
Awesome.
bucket
Well,
list.
yeah, I've interviewed actually a couple of times
Hmm.
pup in Queensland, Australia. His name is
Hmm.
Angus Hume,
Hmm.
and he's pretty awesome. But yeah, the puppy world there is a little different than it is here, but
Hmm.
I would love to see it as well.
Heck yeah.
So I know you've mentioned several times about the Eagle in Dallas, but what else does the puppy world look like there in Dallas?
So DFW Metroplex is pretty far spread out. I think it's kind of funny that we put DFW Metroplex, like it's giant. Fort Worth
Yes.
is almost as far away from Dallas as you can get. Like if you travel from one side of Dallas to the far side of, or the far side of Dallas, far side of Fort Worth, it can be like a 2.5 hour drive. So it's actually really broad. Like we use the Metroplex because ultimately that's like those are the two center points. But it's pretty spread out. So I mean, we go almost all the way up into Oklahoma, and then go down
Yeah.
to like Waxahachie, which is almost central Texas. Um, so we have a lot of venues. Um, I think a lot of our events tend to be structured around socialization. Um, we're trying to start getting a few more like education based events
Yeah.
happening, just because we've recently realized like a lot of people just have questions about either other kinks or aspects of puppy play that they would like to just learn more about. And I also want to get more moshes. We do have moshes, but they tend to happen in like bar spaces and such, which isn't a problem for everyone. Like I don't particularly care, but like my Omega Marvel gets overstimulated pretty easily, which is understandable. It's very loud.
Yeah.
And then also when you get new puppies coming in, um, there's some anxiety behind that of like, oh, I'm in a public place with a bunch of people and I'm about to, try to go into headspace for the first time. So I
Yeah.
want to kind of have a few different options available in terms of education and moshes. But yeah, again, generally very social. So we have a lot of fun bar nights. Um, Dallas is known for our like neighborhood district, which is off of this one specific street. So there's a couple clubs that we host events at. Um, there's the Hidden Door, which is a really awesome bar, like just around the corner from our little neighborhood strip.
Oh, no.
So we have events there. The Dallas Eagle is like kind of on the south side of Dallas, but it's all really within like 15 minutes. And then I haven't unfortunately gone to any of the Fort Worth things because, like I said, unfortunately, like my area is still almost an hour away from Fort Worth. But I know they've done things like talent shows over there. They do have moshes over there as well. But we're definitely very social, I will say. Like my hometown
Good.
pups are very social puppies.
Yeah. Well, if others wanted to reach out to you, how might they get in touch with you?
You can hit me up on Telegram, which is Dog Complex, like God Complex, but with dog. Or hit me up on my social media, which all of the ats will soon be Punk Pup Bandit.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. So any last words from Pup Bandit before we get off here?
I am incredibly grateful to what I have been given by the pup community thus far. It has changed my life in a lot of wonderful ways. And I am so excited to continue to further the connections that I have, share the love with all of the amazing little creatures that are part of this wonderful community. And I can't wait to get to give back and help more people find this thing that I am so wildly passionate about.
Awesome. I couldn't have said it better. Well, it's been awesome getting to learn a little bit about you tonight and stuff. I hope you enjoyed being on here, and I'm sure it won't be the last time we talk.
Arf. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
No problem. You have a good one.
You too. Arf.